So here I am, sitting in the mess that's become my life, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. I've been married to Claire for 5 years. No kids, just us and a dog, which I used to think was great because it gave us freedom. We could travel, go out whenever we wanted, all that stuff. We were the couple everyone thought had it all together. But lately, things have been different. Claire has been different. She started using Uber more often about 6 months ago. No big deal at first, right? We both work, and she had some late meetings, so it made sense she'd get a ride home sometimes instead of waiting for me to pick her up. I didn't think anything of it. But then it became almost daily. She would take an Uber to work, to her friend's house, to the gym. At first, I chalked it up to convenience. We live in the city, so Uber's a decent option when traffic is bad, and it gave her more flexibility. But something started feeling off. Claire was always chatty when she came home. We'd talk about our day, what we did, and just hang out like usual. But then, she started talking about this one Uber driver. Let's call him Nick. Oh, Nick is such a nice guy. He's funny, and we always have the best conversations, she'd say. I thought it was weird how much she was mentioning him, but whatever. It wasn't like she was hiding anything, she was pretty open about it. Soon, it went from just casual mentions to more. She'd text me, "Nick gave me a ride again, and we stopped for coffee." Or, "Nick knows a great restaurant. Maybe we should try it." I remember laughing it off at first, teasing her that she was basically best friends with her Uber driver. But something started gnawing at me. Why was she always taking his rides? How did she manage to get the same driver every time? Isn't Uber supposed to be random? Things started getting weirder after that. Claire wasn't just mentioning Nick in passing anymore. She was full on talking about him like he was some amazing, wise, life-changing person. "Nick thinks I should quit my job," she said one evening over dinner. I choked on my drink when I heard that. "Wait, what?" I asked, thinking she was joking. But no, she was dead serious. "Yeah, he said I deserve better. He gets it, you know? He's been through a lot, and he just understands how I feel about work. He says I should do what makes me happy." It was such an odd thing to say, coming from a guy she barely knew, and it threw me off. I started paying more attention. She was glued to her phone, smiling down at it, texting who knows who. Guess who? Nick, obviously. One night, I casually asked her why she always seemed to end up with the same driver. "Oh, we exchange numbers now," she said like it was no big deal. "It's easier than waiting for the app to find a ride. And he's reliable, you know?" That didn't sit right with me. Exchanging numbers? Meeting for coffee? It was sounding less like an Uber driver and more like something else. But Claire? My wife? Cheating? I pushed the thought out of my head. Claire could be a bit self-centered and dramatic at times, but she wasn't a liar. At least I thought so. Then she started taking more work trips. She'd come home late, sometimes smelling like cheap perfume that definitely wasn't hers. I even asked her about it once, joking. "You smell like you walked through a department store's perfume aisle." She just laughed it off and said it was from a coworker at the office. I wanted to believe her, I really did. I mean, Claire could be a bit flaky, but she wasn't that kind of person, right? The late nights, the constant rides with Nick, the way she'd always check her phone the second it buzzed, it was all piling up. But the real kicker was when she started lying about where she was going. One evening, she said she was heading out for yoga with a friend. Weird, because she's never been into yoga. But I didn't question it. An hour later, I went out to grab some food, and on my way back I saw her. She was at a bar on the other side of town. With Nick. They were sitting outside, laughing, looking way too comfortable with each other. I stopped in my tracks, frozen. I didn't confront her that night, but my stomach twisted into knots. Something was definitely happening. And it wasn't just innocent rides with her. Nice Uber driver. The night I saw Claire with Nick at the bar, something in me snapped. I was angry, confused, but also determined to figure out what the hell was really going on. She came home a few hours later, all smiles, acting like everything was normal. But I couldn't let it slide. "How was yoga?" I asked, keeping my tone casual, trying not to show the storm brewing inside me. She looked at me, not missing a beat. "Oh, it was great. We tried some new poses, and I feel so relaxed." She even threw in a little stretch for emphasis. I stared at her, completely baffled by how easily she could lie. "Yoga, huh? That's weird because I saw you at the bar with Nick." Her face froze for a split second before she quickly recovered. "Oh. You must have seen us after class. We grabbed a quick drink, nothing serious. I didn't think it was a big deal, so I didn't mention it." Her ability to flip the script so easily was impressive, but this wasn't just grabbing a drink. They looked way too cozy for that. "You didn't think it was a big deal?" I repeated, trying to keep calm. "You've been spending an awful lot of time with Nick lately." Claire's expression shifted, and suddenly she was defensive. "What's the problem here? He's just a friend." "You're acting like I'm doing something wrong." "You're lying to me, Claire. You said you were going to yoga, but you were out with him. Why lie about that if it's just a drink with a friend?" And that's when the hysterics started. She crossed her arms and rolled her eyes like I was the one being ridiculous. "Oh my God, are you seriously accusing me of something because I had one drink with a guy I happened to get along with? What's next? You gonna tell me I can't have friends?" I tried to keep my cool, but her reaction was over the top. She was twisting it, making it seem like I was the one overreacting. "It's not about having friends. It's about how shady this whole thing has been, lying about yoga, texting him all the time, taking rides with him every day." Claire scoffed. "You're just paranoid. I'm allowed to have a life outside of you, you know." That comment hit me hard. "A life outside of me?" I echoed. "That's not what this is about, and you know it. Why can't you just be honest with me?" Instead of calming down, she escalated. "You want honesty? Fine. Nick gets me, okay? He understands me in ways you never will. He listens. He cares. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need to rely on him." It was like she wanted to hurt me, like she needed me to feel like it was somehow my fault. I stood there speechless, trying to wrap my head around what she had just said. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't my Claire. Before I could even respond, she stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I stood in the living room, numb. The lies, the defensiveness, the way she flipped everything onto me, it all felt like the beginning of something much worse. Little did I know, it was about to get a whole lot worse. After Claire's meltdown, things didn't calm down. In fact, they got worse. The lies piled up. She was constantly working late, going on girls' nights out, or meeting friends after work. Every time I tried to talk about it, she either blew up on me or gaslighted the hell out of me, making me feel like I was the crazy one. At this point, I knew something was going on, but I had no real proof. Just my gut feeling, and the fact that Nick was becoming more and more of a shadow in our relationship. She mentioned him less in conversation, but her phone buzzed nonstop when she was home. And every time it did, she'd make an excuse to step into another room. I couldn't shake the image of them at the bar. The way they laughed together, the way she looked at him, way too intimate for just a casual friendship. I was being played, and deep down, I knew it. But without catching her in the act, I had nothing. One night, after yet another work dinner, I couldn't stand it anymore. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. She had a passcode, which was new, but I had seen her unlock it enough times to know what it was. My hands were shaking as I opened her messages. It was worse than I could have imagined. The first thing I saw was a thread with Nick. There were countless messages, many of them harmless, but then I scrolled up. Things got flirty, really flirty. She was sending him selfies, talking about how much she missed him when he wasn't driving her. He responded with equal enthusiasm, telling her she was beautiful, and that he couldn't wait to see her again. My stomach churned. But the real punch to the gut came when I saw their plans for tomorrow. She wasn't going to work. They had planned to meet up, and it wasn't just for coffee. She was meeting him in his car. The messages made it clear that their relationship wasn't just emotional, it was physical. There were explicit texts, ones I won't even repeat here. My heart sank. They were going to meet up in the same spot she always gets picked up from in the mornings. My mind raced with a million thoughts: rage, sadness, betrayal. But mostly, I needed to catch her. I needed her to know I wasn't the fool she thought I was. The next morning, I played it cool. I acted like everything was fine, like I hadn't seen the texts. I kissed her goodbye as she headed off to work. But instead of going to my job, I followed her. She walked to the corner, just like she always did. I parked far enough away that I wouldn't be seen but close enough to watch. Sure enough, within minutes, Nick's car pulled up. She slid into the back seat, and they drove off. I followed at a distance, my hands shaking on the wheel. They didn't go far, just a few blocks before pulling into an empty parking lot behind an old building. I couldn't believe what I was about to witness, but part of me knew I had to see it to believe it. Nick's car came to a stop, and I watched from my car as things went down exactly as I feared. They started kissing in the back seat, and before long, clothes were being tossed. My blood boiled as I watched them have sex right there in the back of his car. My wife. My fucking wife with another man. And not just any man, but the goddamn Uber driver she had been fawning over for months. I felt sick, disgusted, but I knew I had to confront her. I snapped pictures of the whole thing, just to make sure she couldn't weasel her way out of it later. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but at the same time, it was the confirmation I needed. I was done. There was no going back after this. I sat there in my car, barely able to process what I had just witnessed. My wife, the woman I had spent the last 5 years of my life with, was having sex with her Uber driver in the back of his car, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I had seen enough. It was time to end this, and I wasn't going to be quiet about it. I stepped out of my car and marched straight toward them. My heart was pounding in my chest, a mix of adrenaline and fury coursing through my veins. I slammed my fist on the window of the car, startling both of them. Claire's eyes shot wide open, and Nick scrambled to cover himself. It was almost comical how fast the color drained from her face when she saw me. "What the fuck, Claire?" I shouted, my voice shaking with rage. Claire frantically tried to pull her clothes back on, her hands shaking. She was a mess, her hair disheveled, her shirt half on. Nick was still fumbling with his pants, looking like a deer caught in headlights. It would have been almost pathetic if it wasn't so infuriating. Wait, I can explain. Claire started, but I cut her off. Explain what? That you've been screwing your Uber driver behind my back? That you've been lying to me for months? I saw the texts, Claire. I know everything. Her eyes flickered with panic, and then, in typical Claire fashion, she went from panic to defensive in seconds. Why are you even here? Were you following me? Oh my God, this is insane. You're acting like a psycho. She was trying to flip it on me, like she always did. I could feel the anger boiling over. Are you serious right now? You're the one cheating on me in the back of some random car, and I'm the psycho? How long has this been going on? Nick, who had finally managed to zip up his pants, tried to step in. Hey man, it's not what it looks like. Shut the hell up, Nick. I snapped, not even looking at him. This is between me and my wife. Claire threw her hands up, already shifting into her usual mode of deflection. You know what? Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have needed this. You never pay attention to me. Nick actually listens. He cares. Unlike you, he knows how to make me feel wanted. I stood there, stunned at the audacity. She wasn't even sorry. Not an ounce of remorse in her voice. Just venom, twisting the knife deeper. So, this is my fault? You're blaming me for this? Claire rolled her eyes like I was the one being unreasonable. You're so predictable. Always playing the victim. I didn't want this to happen, but look at us. We're broken. You never cared enough to see it. The manipulation was off the charts. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to stand there and make it about me. But I wasn't going to let her pull me into her web of bullshit anymore. I pulled out my phone and showed her the pictures I had taken. I've got all the proof I need. You're not getting out of this one, Claire. We're done. I'm filing for divorce. Her face shifted again, this time to fear. She started backpedaling, her voice softening. Wait. No, let's talk about this. You don't need to do that. I mean, it was a mistake. I cut her off. No, Claire. You made your choice. I'm done being lied to. Done being manipulated. You've been cheating on me, and I'm not going to stick around for any more of your excuses. She looked like she wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to say. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the parking lot with Nick, both of them caught in their pathetic attempt to justify what they had done. As I got into my car and drove away, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, relief, sadness. But mostly I felt free. Free from the lies, free from her manipulation. It was over, and now, I was taking control of my life again. After that parking lot scene, I went straight to a lawyer's office. I wasn't messing around anymore. I wanted the divorce papers filed immediately, and I wasn't interested in hearing any more of Claire's lies. My lawyer, after hearing what had happened, was surprisingly calm about it. These things happen, she said, like it was just another Tuesday at the office. But for me, it felt like my entire world was collapsing. When I got home, Claire wasn't there. Part of me was relieved. I didn't want to deal with her hysterics right away. But the silence was eerie. Our apartment felt different, almost like it wasn't mine anymore. I sat there in the quiet, trying to wrap my head around how everything had spiraled so fast. How had we gone from a seemingly happy marriage to this nightmare? It wasn't long before Claire came home, though. I could hear her before I even saw her, slamming the front door, her heavy footsteps echoing down the hall. When she saw me sitting on the couch, she wasted no time jumping into full-on hysterics. Are you seriously filing for divorce? Over one mistake? You're going to throw everything away because I made a bad decision? Her voice was sharp, accusatory, like I was the one overreacting. I didn't even bother looking up from my phone. Claire, this wasn't one mistake. You've been cheating on me for months. I have the proof. You've been lying to me every single day. She stormed over, hands on her hips, the same defiant attitude she'd had in the parking lot. So what? You've never made a mistake before? I told you, it's because you never pay attention to me. If you actually cared about our marriage, you would have seen this coming. But no, you're too busy with your boring routine to notice when I'm unhappy. I couldn't believe how twisted her logic was. So, your answer to being unhappy is to sleep with the Uber driver? That's how you solve our problems? Instead of talking to me, you jump into someone else's car, literally? Her face turned red with anger, but she didn't back down. You don't get it. Nick understood me. He made me feel wanted, something you haven't done in a long time. You're always too focused on your stupid work, your little hobbies, your boring routine. You made me feel invisible. I stood up, finally losing my patience. I made you feel invisible? You're unbelievable, Claire. I worked hard, I provided for us, I was there for you. And you're telling me that's why you cheated? Because I didn't give you enough attention? You're so selfish, it's unreal. She stepped closer, her voice turning desperate now. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry, okay? Let's just talk about this. You don't have to go through with the divorce. We can fix it. I shook my head, tired of hearing the same empty words. No, Claire. I'm done. I've already filed the papers. There's no fixing this. You made your choice when you decided to lie to me, when you decided to cheat. I can't trust you anymore. Suddenly, she changed tactics. She started sobbing, real tears this time, her voice breaking. Please. I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything. I'll cut off all contact with Nick, I'll go to therapy, whatever you want. Just, please don't leave me. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered what I had seen, the way she kissed Nick, the way she let him touch her like I didn't exist. And the pity evaporated. You should have thought about that before you destroyed our marriage, I said coldly. It's too late for apologies. Her sobbing grew louder, but I wasn't swayed. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door, leaving her in the mess she had created. I'll be staying somewhere else for a while. I can't be here with you. As I walked out, I could still hear her crying, but I knew it wasn't going to change anything. This was the end of us, and there was no going back. I had given her everything, and she had thrown it all away for some cheap thrill. Now she'd have to live with the consequences. After walking out, I went to stay with a friend for a few days. The space away from Claire felt like a weight lifted off my chest, though the anger still burned deep inside. I had told her we were done, and I meant it, but of course, Claire wasn't going to let things go that easily. She started texting me nonstop, alternating between apologizing and blaming me for everything. One minute she'd be begging for another chance. I'll do anything, please just come home. The next, she was back to her venomous self. You were a terrible husband anyway. Nick actually appreciated me, unlike you. It was exhausting, mentally and emotionally. No matter how much I ignored her, the messages kept coming. She even tried calling me at all hours, but I blocked her number. I didn't want to hear her voice, didn't want to get sucked into her manipulation again. A few days later, Claire showed up at my friend's place unannounced. I don't know how she found out where I was staying, but there she was, standing at the door, looking like a complete wreck. Her makeup was smeared, her hair a mess, and she had this wild, desperate look in her eyes. You can't just leave me, she screamed, pushing her way inside. I need you. We can fix this, I know we can. My friend, clearly uncomfortable, quietly stepped aside to let me deal with it. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Claire, you need to leave. There's nothing left to fix. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly tight. No. You don't get to just walk away like this. We've been together for years. You can't throw that all away because of one mistake. One mistake? I scoffed, pulling my arm away from her. You cheated on me for months, Claire. You lied to me every day. This wasn't a mistake. It was a series of choices, and you made them. This is on you. Her face twisted in frustration, and once again, she flipped the narrative. You pushed me to it. If you weren't so checked out all the time, I wouldn't have needed someone else. You drove me into his arms. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're still blaming me? After everything? You can't take responsibility for anything, can you? She broke down again, her emotions swinging wildly. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I don't know why I did it. I love you, please just come home. We can figure this out together. It was like she was throwing every tactic she could think of, blame, guilt, desperation, all in the span of 5 minutes. But I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. Claire, we're done. I've already filed for divorce. There's no going back. I said, as calmly as I could. Her face contorted with rage. So that's it? You're just going to leave me for him? She spat, referring to my friend, clearly grasping at straws. I shook my head. This has nothing to do with anyone else. This is about you and me, and how you destroyed everything we had. She started crying again, but this time, I felt nothing. No pity, no sympathy. I was drained. Watching her fall apart in front of me didn't move me like it used to. Instead, I just felt free. Like I was finally seeing her for who she really was, manipulative, selfish, and incapable of taking responsibility for her actions. I think you should go, I said, walking toward the door and opening it. Claire hesitated, her eyes darting between me and the exit, like she still couldn't believe this was happening. But eventually she stormed out, throwing one last bitter comment over her shoulder. You're going to regret this. I'll make sure of it. I shut the door behind her, her words hanging in the air like a final, empty threat. But I didn't care anymore. I had seen through her lies, her manipulation, and I wasn't going to let her drag me down again. As the days went by, the legal process started moving. Claire, of course, fought back, making it as difficult as possible. She contested the divorce, trying to stall it, probably hoping I'd change my mind. But I was done. I had already started looking for a new place, and my focus shifted towards starting fresh, away from the toxic mess she had created. The hardest part wasn't the legal battles or even the emotional toll of the betrayal. It was the sudden emptiness, the realization that the life I had known for the last few years was gone, shattered in an instant. But with every step forward I felt lighter, like I was reclaiming pieces of myself that I had lost while being with Claire. In a way, I had already mourned the loss of our relationship long before I caught her in that car with Nick. The lies, the manipulation, it had been dying for months. Now, I was just laying it to rest. And as painful as it was, it felt like the only way to move on. Just as I thought things were finally settling down, Claire threw one last curveball that I didn't see coming. A few weeks after I had filed for divorce and blocked her from every possible communication channel, I got a call from my lawyer. Apparently, Claire was trying to contest the divorce on grounds of emotional abandonment. She was claiming that I had neglected her for so long that her affair was justified. She wanted spousal support. Yes, spousal support, after cheating on me with the Uber driver. At first, I thought it was a joke. I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. She had already wrecked our marriage, and now she wanted to drag me through more legal battles to squeeze money out of me? It was like she had no shame left. My lawyer was calm, as usual. Don't worry, we've got enough to counter her claims. With the evidence of her affair and her behavior during this whole process, we have a solid case. But of course, Claire wasn't going to go down without a fight. Over the next few weeks, she escalated things even further. She started showing up at my workplace, unannounced and unhinged. One afternoon, she actually barged into my office, causing a scene. She was shouting at me in front of my coworkers, claiming that I had ruined her life and that I would pay for what I did. I had to call security to escort her out, which only made her more hysterical. It was beyond embarrassing. My boss pulled me aside later, concerned that this was going to become a bigger issue. I assured him I was handling it, but inside I felt like Claire was trying to pull me back into her toxic vortex. That night, I got another call from my lawyer. Claire had officially filed for spousal support, claiming she had sacrificed her career to support mine, which was a total lie. She had barely worked during our marriage, and when she did, it was more for her own spending habits than contributing to the household. It was obvious to everyone that she was desperate. But what came next took the cake. One day, out of the blue, Nick, the Uber driver, reached out to me. I had no idea how he got my number, but he sent a message saying he needed to talk. At first, I didn't respond. I wanted nothing to do with him. But the curiosity got the better of me. What could this guy possibly have to say after everything that had happened? We met up at a coffee shop, and to my surprise, he looked as miserable as I felt. He wasted no time getting to the point. I broke things off with Claire. I stared at him, confused. Why are you telling me this? He sighed, rubbing his face like he hadn't slept in days. Look, man, I had no idea what I was getting into. She's not who I thought she was. Things went south fast after you two split. She started getting clingy, controlling, and honestly, kinda scary. She'd blow up my phone, show up at my place unannounced. It was a nightmare. I almost laughed. The irony was too rich. Claire, the woman who cheated on me because I supposedly didn't give her enough attention, was now driving her lover crazy with her possessiveness. Nick continued, looking genuinely freaked out. I don't know what she's telling you in court, but I wanted to make it clear, I'm not with her anymore. She's been threatening me too, saying she's going to ruin my life if I don't take her back. It's messed up, man. I thought you should know. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for the guy, but I couldn't muster much sympathy. After all, he had helped destroy my marriage. Still, I appreciated the heads up. Claire was spiraling, and it was only a matter of time before she burned every bridge she had left. When the divorce finally went through, it was a relief. Claire's attempts to get spousal support were shot down in court. The judge saw through her manipulative tactics, especially after I presented all the evidence of her affair with Nick. She walked away with nothing. No money, no house, no sympathy from anyone. But the real victory came later. A few weeks after the dust settled, I got an email from Claire. The tone was completely different from the hysterical, angry messages she had been sending. This one was cold, almost businesslike. "I hope you're happy with how things turned out," she wrote. "You've ruined my life, but don't think for a second that this is over. I'll rebuild, and when I do, you'll regret underestimating me." I deleted the email without replying. It was clear she was still trying to manipulate me, even after everything. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I had moved on, started to rebuild my own life without her toxicity poisoning it. Claire could threaten, scream, and blame me all she wanted. But I was free. Free from the lies, the betrayal, the constant drama. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. As for her? I heard through mutual acquaintances that she tried to move on, but things weren't going well. Her relationship with Nick had imploded, and she'd burned so many bridges that she was basically on her own. Last I heard, she was trying to get her life together, but with her pattern of self-destruction, I wasn't holding my breath. In the end, I didn't regret a thing. Walking away from her was the best decision I'd ever made. And now, I had a second chance at life. One without the lies, the manipulation, or the chaos she had brought into my world. It was over. Finally, truly over.